Really, Darren? Really, Darren? Unbelievable. This book is easily one of your worst ones. And we are not even in the middle of the series itself. Oh boy. I'm not gonna say hello guys or something, cause I'm really pissed. So without any delays, let's get started.
Lights, camera. Slawter!
We have 3 alternative covers. All 3 of them are awful. The first is a demon coming out of the sewers. The color green is not pretty good, and it's not even creepy. The second cover is awful. We have a demon-like dog or a werewolf. The colors are horrible. The last cover is a joke. You have a werewolf with 4 arms. What is this garbage? Ben 10? Abysmal. My verdict for all the covers are 1 out of 10. Slawter is possibly one of the worst books in the franchise. It is the case when the behind the scenes are more interesting than the actual book. The author wrote extensively about his inspiration for book 3. I do recommend it for all of you to read it at your leisure. I will critique the book and use the author's notes side by side when we reach essential aspects of the book. So without any delays, guys, let's begin. The story begins after the events of Book 1. We have Grabs telling us how happy endings are cliché. Darren, we get it. Your books are unique because they have gore, your protagonists are miserable kids, and your world is grimdark. No different from every schlock anime and manga from the 80s, 90s, and 00s. Also, if you're going to brag about happy endings, have at least one of your main characters die miserably and gruesome. Do you want a miserable ending? Read Devilman or The Golden Age of Berserk. Even the end of Evangelion is a perfect way of saying happy endings are cliché. Until the rebuild films came, which is a story for another time. Dervis has PTSD and nightmares. He even tries to choke the main protagonist.
Do it, Dervis. Kill that unlikable boy. I am rooting for you.
Damn it! Gramps is alive for now. I'm still rooting for you to die, kid. Anyways, Gramps is recapping the events in Book 1 by writing on his short autobiography assignment for his school. Wow, Darren, are you trying to be clever and hide the recap? It's not working. That is an excellent way to add, and we all lived happily ever after. The end. Oh boy, Darren, we understand. You are writing the Demonata books. It's all about the ads and subverting your expectations. Get to the point and stop stalling. Gramps and Dervis are trying their best to have an everyday life. Gramps is back from school and he wants to talk with Dervis. Dervis informs Gramps about a phone call with follow-up emails. The name David A. Haim rings a bell. Her real name is Davita. She used male pronouns to hide her true identity. Gramps is speechless. David A. Haim is one of the most popular horror producers in the Demonata universe. She made Zombie Zest, which is weird, and Nightmares. But unfortunately, not even the movie titles are creative. So congrats, Darren, you even failed at that. Those titles sound like horror films straight out from the 70s and 80s, especially on the indie side. Gramps rightfully points out she's a big deal. Well, she's not George Lucas or Steven Spielberg famous, but she's pretty famous. The reason why Grabs speaks like a fanboy and with high regards for Davida is because he's based on a real person in the movie business. That person is none other than David Heyman. For those of you who don't know, who is David Heyman? He is indeed a big deal. He was the producer of the Harry Potter films. So Darren, you met a great producer who could easily open doors for you. Here is the backstory straight out from Darren himself.
The book is set a few months after the events of Lord Loss. It started life after I'd paid a couple of visits to the Harry Potter film set. Several years earlier, the movie rights to Cirque du Freak were optioned by Warner Brothers. The producer who set up the deal was David Heyman, who produced the Potter films. David very kindly invited me to pay a visit to the set. They were filming the first movie at the time. I went with two young cousins of mine, Ronan and Lorcan. We met lots of the actors, many of whom were fans of my books, and even had lunch with some of them. At one stage during lunch, Daniel Radcliffe, who later sent me a fan later, did a little party trick and burped the alphabet. Lorcan responded by sticking a hand under his armpit and making farting noises. Daniel tried to copy him but couldn't quite get the hang of it, though he gave it a damn fine try.
Darren, are you serious? You even went to the Harry Potter film set and met with the actor who plays Harry Potter? Darren, my man, not everyone gets to be on a film set. Especially Harry Potter. You met the producer and even the main star of the movie. If I was you, this is what I would have done. I would try to get along with all of them. For example, Daniel Radcliffe is a fan of your work. I would have tried to persuade him and the actor of Ron to speak to multiple movie producers. If they are lucky, they can try to communicate with the creator of Harry Potter, of course, J.K. Rowling. Give them free copies of the Demonata books, to all of them. I wouldn't force it, of course. Ask them if they are interested in reading a book about demons, chess, edgy wizards, and horror, of course. Well, not horror, just say dark fantasy. Have Rupert Grint or Daniel Radcliffe being the choices to play Gramps. I can easily picture either of those two to be the perfect choice for Gramps. You would get on their good side. When the Demonata was released, Harry Potter was at its peak. You could have struck when the iron was hot. The Double O's were all about the dark atmosphere and supernatural creatures. If you were a child in the Double O's or in your 20s, you pretty much know what the Double O's were all about. The Underworld movie series was pretty popular when it came out. Peter Jackson and his company made the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Multiple young adult adaptations came, like Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Golden Compass, The Chronicles of Narnia, and Twilight. The only movie adaptation you managed to put out was one of the book series that made you famous, Cirque du Freak. Well, specifically, Circus de Freak, the Vampire's Assistant. The movie came out in 2009. The film was loosely based on the first three books, Circus de Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, and The Tunnels of Blood. The movie flopped. For obvious reasons, of course, like just looking at the poster and the trailer, it told you that this was a product of its time, trying to get Twilight's fame, and it failed miserably. Go figure, Darren. In book 9 of Demonata, he even had a preview of his manga adaptation of his Circus de Freak. The manga adaptation happened to coincide with the release of the film adaptation. It happened when Darren received a call from his assistant in 2006. There was a contest in which a mangaka would draw his book series. Mind you, Darren had to be the final judge. The winner was Takahiro Arai. The manga adaptation was serialized in Weekly Shonen Sunday. Thanks to the weekly schedule, Arai had to cram the books and make them work in a weekly manga chapter every week. I genuinely feel bad for the mangaka. Reading 12 books from 2006 until 2009 in a strict environment and making them work in a manga format is a huge achievement. The mangaka deserves a Medal of Honor. However, when you look at the actual artwork, it leaves much to be desired. The panels are generic. The art style is the definition of how to draw a manga book. Suppose I was Darren's son and knew about Japan's woke culture. I would have suggested Arai to work on a monthly magazine publisher. My best bet would have been Monthly Shonen Magazine. That magazine is well known for manga like Noragami, Spider-Man the Manga, Violent Jack, Beck, Alive, The Final Evolution, and Your Lie in April. Arai would have had time to read all 12 books in his leisure, have him practice his artwork and his panels. The chapters and the quality of the art would have improved tremendously. If Darren did that strategy, people from Japan would have taken notice of his work, and the Demonata would have had a far better chance in Japan than in America or Britain. On the other hand, if the stars were with Darren and Japanese publishers wanted foreign books to become manga adaptations, and of course Darren had the last word, in my opinion, my picks would have been number 1. Tatsuki Fujimoto, a mangaka who made Fire Punch, Chainsaw Man, and his one-shots. His panels are pretty unique, with a flair for cinematic movement. His demons are outstanding, and the action would work with Darren stories. Number 2. Hiroya Oku, a mangaka who made Gantz, Inuyashiki, and Gigant. He is a mangaka who loves cinema. His panels are detailed storyboards for Hollywood films like Michael Bay and Roland Emmerich. The use of CGI background in his manga is incredible. The monsters and the amount of machinery are astounding. He would be right at home with Darren. Number 3. Kengo Hanasawa, a mangaka who made I Am a Hero. He is pretty good with the zombies and the movement of the characters, and his panels are pretty kinetic. You get to feel like this is not a manga, this is a storyboard for a TV show or a movie. He would fit right at home with the Demonata. Number 4. Q Hayashita, a mangaka who made Dorohedoro and Die Dark. Her art style will fit perfectly with the Demonata, and the demon designs that she made throughout her career are incredible. The landscapes are bizarre and unique. Perfect choice for Darren. I know I'm stalling the review. It's because Darren-san's backstory of his book is more compelling than reading the actual book. Grabs meets with his classmates. Ignore them, they do not matter in the long run. They do reappear in Book 5, however, in the overall story of the franchise, they are just a necessary filler. Grabs mentions the famous producer, and his friends are naturally interested. Davida calls Dervis and informs her arrival in the next week. Grabs is excited about the opportunity to meet her. A week passes and nothing happens. Finally, the author remembers and reintroduces a plot point from Book 1. The leader of the Lamps arrives with her car. She takes Grams with her. They arrive at Dervis' house. They have a conversation. She brings up some interesting points regarding Grams' potential lycanthropy transformation. Dervis refuses any cooperation and tells her to leave. Well, that was pointless. She never reappears in Book 3 ever again. She was there to remind us the organization exists. Darren does not explore Dervis' PTSD pretty well. The Lamps is a great idea on paper, however, we are witnessing all of this from Graham's point of view. As a result, we will never get an idea of the world building. Now we see the nightmares happening again. So Darren, that is how you write PTSD. It loses its power if you keep reusing it. Davida with Junie arrives. Keep Junie in your mind, everyone. She will play an important role later. And the actual plot begins. Davida is speaking about her love of horror films, especially the Universal and Hammer pictures. James Rolfe would like to know your location.
Hello everyone, James Rolfe here. Today we are going to talk about Slawter. This film is a great love letter to the horror films I grew up with. Did you know Slawter is a Halloween film?
Nope! No, James! Don't you even dare to hijack my review! You got that?
Anyways, before we start, today's sponsor is...
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the title of the movie, as James Rolfe mentioned. Title of Davida's new film is Slaughter. Get it? Slaughter equals slaughter! Seriously, is that supposed to be clever? In his author's notes, Darren was proud of that title.
The title of Slaughter came to me very late in the day. I'll often have the title of the book clear in my head before I begin writing, or will have come up with it by the end of the first draft. But sometimes the title takes longer to fall into place. Slaughter was one of the trickiest I've yet to land. The working title of the book was Demontown. In fact, that was still the title I had up to a few months before publication. I wasn't overly keen on it, but at the same time it was quite punchy and accurate. I think if there hadn't been other considerations at work, I might have stuck with it. But Book 2 was called Demon Thief. That title was absolutely perfect, so there was no way I was going to change it. But I felt Demontown was too similar, especially coming so soon after Demon Thief. My agent and publishers agreed, but couldn't think of any better title for it. So I had to go searching. I toyed with lots of different ideas and approaches. I wanted something that would reflect what happens in the book, but also the fun nature of it. And as dark as it gets in places, this is one of my more fantastical and wryly humorous books. After a while, I began playing with the word slaughter. I transformed it into slaughter fairly swiftly, but at first I didn't think that was enough. I wanted another word to go with it. I came up with a whole variety of names. Slaughter's Den, Slaughter's Lot, Slaughter's Edge, etc. I was having a hard time choosing, so I sent a list of them to my agent and my publishers. My UK editor, Stella, immediately zoned in on Slaughter and said that was the best name for the book. And after much thought and deliberation, I saw that she was right, and thus Slaughter was chosen. I then had to go through the book and change all the Demontown references. That was the name of the movie set in the book in the early drafts, to Slaughter. The only voice of dissent came from my American publisher. They wanted to go with a two-name title, as I had originally planned. They liked the titles of Lord Loss and Demon Thief, and wanted to stick with two name titles for every book in the series. Well, I normally let my foreign publishers do what they like with the names of my books, but I felt they were wrong in this instance, so I resisted. The UK and American markets are very close to each other, and I've already tasted the confusion of promoting a series with a different name in one than in the other. In America, the saga of Darren Shan is known as the Cirque du Freak series. I think it's easier to have the same name for a book or series in America as in the UK, and since I felt Slaughter was the best name out of all the proposed titles, I strongly urged Little Brown to go with it. And since they're such nice people, they agreed. Hurrah!
Suppose I was one of your agents. I would have told you to delete it. It sounds silly, and not in a good way. When I hear the word slaughter, my mind says, is this guy trying to sound clever? Darren, if you wanted to play the meta commentary about horror, I suggest you to watch the first two Scream films, In the Mouth of Madness, One Cut of the Dead, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Those films did the meta aspect of horror tastefully and innovatively. But unfortunately, your book lacks clever commentary and critique on the horror genre. More on that later. Davida wants Dervis to help her make the movie. She gives him the script. The film is about demons coming into the world and destroying it. Not cool, Darren. You just spoiled the whole book. Being subtle was never your forte. Suppose you are going to play with the meta-narrative. It would be best if you subverted the horror cliches. You subverted nothing. You just took the meta tag and advertised it without understanding anything. So far, we have Gramps complaining about happy endings are cliché as a way to say my books are different compared to Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, and so on. Look, my characters are edgy emo kids with first world problems. My books are unique. I am the master of horror. Then we have a film producer based on a real life producer you just met. That fictional producer is going to become a film director. She has been working on this film for 4 years, and her magnum opus will be about scary demons that will destroy the world. It's like you think the readers are stupid enough to not notice the obvious plot twist. As a result, you lack anticipation, build-up, and the element of surprise. That is not meta, Darren. It's a mockery of horror and meta as a whole. The movie director and Junie leave the house. Grabs checks on Dervis to see if he's alright. Dervis looks at Lord Law's face, and we get this unintentional moment. I approach cautiously, freeze when I catch sight of the book. There is a painting of Lord Laws on the cover. Just his face. And it's moving. His awful red eyes are widening. His lips spreading. Dervis is muttering a spell, bending closer to the book. Lord Law's teeth gleamed in the light of the candle. His face starts to come off the page, like a 3D image, reaching for Dervis, as thought to kiss him. Darren, just stop. Dervis has read the script of the movie. He is impressed and terrified by how accurate it is, so he decides to join the movie production. Dervis wants to bring Billy with them to protect him from the lamps. Okay, makes sense so far. Gramps brings up a great point. Dervis won't be under the house protection from the threats of Lord Laws. Thanks to his nightmares, he is not entirely himself. Dervis suggests Gramps to take care of him if he loses control of himself, and Mira will stay to look after the house. Alright, let me get this straight. You want Gramps to protect you. How exactly? Yes, he has nightmares. The movie script is accurate, and it may have some dangerous spells. Don't you think calling the disciples would be helpful? They are experienced mages in case Dervis is out of control or being cast a powerful spell. One of the disciples would be beneficial. If the disciples could not come here due to being busy saving the world, Grumps can have a magic potion or learn a spell if things go south. Dervis doesn't make preparations and is setting himself up for a big disaster. The gang arrives at the movie set. The whole portion of the book is based on Darren's son's experience with the first 2 Harry Potter films.
As I said, the idea for Slawter started with a trip to the Harry Potter film set. I was first invited onto the set by the movie's producer, David Heyman. He had also optioned the rights to my book back then when Warner Brothers were involved, and one of the perks of that was an invite to drop by and see the massive Potter set. I don't normally take much advantage of my position as a writer. I don't look for tickets to advance screenings of movies, or pester people for free books or advance reading copies, or hang out with celebrity friends in cool, chic locations. But this was one opportunity I wasn't going to pass up. David's a really nice guy, with an interesting past. He started out in the film business working for David Lean, one of my all-time favourite directors, on A Passage to India. The deal with Warner Brothers didn't work out in the end, but that wasn't David's fault. And I have no hard feelings about it whatsoever. I'd happily go through the same process again with him if he ever showed interest in any of my other books. Because I liked him so much, I decided to pay homage to him in the book that grew out of my visits to the set. But, as those who know me have learnt to their cost, I like to twist things around a bit when I put people I know into my books. Thus, my brother Declan and my best friend Pablo Kenny, became a pair of tramps when I worked them into The Saga of Darren Shan. My cousin Sharon Egan became an exploding witch and demon thief, etc., etc. So, although one of the key characters in this book is based on David Heyman, the pair aren't quite the same. For a start, Davida Haim is a woman. She's a slightly batty horror producer cum director who's probably seen a few too many gruesome flicks in her time and has got a bit too close to the work she does. She's not nasty, just a bit strange. She serves as the book's catalyst. She's the one who invites Dervish to come to the set and who says it's no problem if the boys tag along. She's also written the demon-strewn screenplay and is personally overseeing the creation of the demonic props. Is it possible, as a rather hysterical Grubbs postulates at one stage, that she's in league with the Demonata hordes? Or is she a victim of happenstance? Or is Grubbs just imagining the whole threat? You'll have to read the book to find out. But in the meantime, Sate your curiosity with this small nugget of information and wink knowingly at your friends when you read the book, and let them know the origin of the oddly named producer, Davida Haim, aka David A. Haim. She doesn't like horror fanboys to know she's a woman, so she hides behind a man's name. Later, when they were making the second movie, I paid another visit to the set, this time with my girlfriend, now wife, Bass. We were escorted around the set on this occasion by Linda Lewis, mother of Matt Lewis, who played Neville in the films. Linda was closely involved with taking care of the various children on the set, and had some amusing tales about the kids and how they were coping with the fame that had come their way since I first met them. Around that time, I began playing with the idea of writing a book based on a film set. It was going to be a non-fantasy story, a funny, realistic tale of life in the movies, inspired by some of the stories Linda told me, mixed up with invented stories of my own. In the end, this didn't come to anything, and I lost interest in it. That often happens. I'll play around with an idea, decide it's not for me, and drop it. But I still like the idea of doing a movie-based book, exploring the lives of a bunch of kids on a film set, only with some sort of a fantastical twist. I'd written another couple of Grubbs Grady books by that stage, eventually released as books 5 and 6 of the Demonata, as well as a novel set in the past, book 4, but hadn't quite figured out the structure of the Demonata series. I didn't have any big overall story arc. This was before I wrote Demon Thief, and I couldn't quite see a way to pull all the novels together and build them up into one big interconnected series. Was it possible, I wondered, to do another Grubbs book, but set before the other two? A book to bridge the gap between Lord Loss and the other Grubbs books, to flesh out the universe I'd created, and maybe help me find the way to the heart of the big story that I could sense lurking somewhere beneath the surface of the individual books I'd already written. What if I sent Grubbs and Dervish to a movie set and wrote a book which both spoofed over-the-top horror movies and worked as a fun bit of over-the-top schlock horror itself? And that's when the idea for Slawter was born.
The author's notes of Book 3 are 10 times more exciting and more educational than Book 3. Just imagine dad and son with his cousins, Linda, Louis, David and his wife, but replace them with his characters. It could have been an excellent opportunity for kids who read those books to learn about the magic of filmmaking. Instead, we have one-note characters with the personality of a piece of paper. Darren explores the behind-the-scenes of making the film in the most basic way possible. He doesn't offer any insight or an interesting perspective. The animatronics are inside the warehouse and no one can see them. Gee, I wonder why. Then the shooting begins. We have the animatronics killing the actors. The actors disappear from the set, never to be seen again. Gramps recognizes the animatronics. Dervis doesn't believe him. Billy thinks Grubbs' fears hit him. Rinse and repeat for a couple of pages. It's tiresome to read the same events over and over again. Grubbs should have realized Dervis is brainwashed. Grubbs has enough and tries to convince Junie that demons are real. He brings Billy with him as well. Grubbs uses magic and convinces Junie to join the cause. They head to the warehouse after stealth, magic and fighting demons. Junie is convinced demons are real. They return safely and meet with Dervis. Junie, with the power of love, breaks the brainwashing spell, and Dervis is free. Hooray! This book is abysmal! They all decide to leave the movie set and call for backup. If I were Dervis, I would have called the disciples for help. They would have waited outside the movie studio. The moment when demons attack, they would have been ready. But this is a poorly made young adult book. However, they are captured. This whole part is pointless. It's fan service for the sake of fan service. You can easily skip it and go straight to part 4 instead. Awful part and chapter. Shameless fan service. It was all a dream. Darren should have cut that whole part entirely. Part 4 resumes with the main characters awakening from the filler chapter. The characters are trapped with ropes. They manage to release themselves. The objective is to find the director and inform her about the demons. They manage to find Davida. Remember the Harry Potter villains when they have to monologue their big master plan? Guess what happens, everyone? Damn, Darren, you really subverted my expectations. Davida reveals her evil plan. It makes all the Harry Potter villains to have death by default. She made a deal with the devil. The demons will come to the human world, kill all the humans in exchange for her art to become a masterpiece. Seriously? No, really. It has to be the worst villain reveal of all time. It is unrealistic and juvenile. Davida, who made multiple horror films in her entire movie career, never thought the devil will double-cross her. She's supposed to be a clever woman, yet she made the worst life decision. Darren, if I was David and read your book, I would have cut ties with you. Even if we take her dream of making the most fantastic horror film of all time as a legit motivation, who will watch it? First of all, it would be a snuff film, and snuff film do not go to cinema at all. It goes to a specific website, which I'm not gonna name it. And even if the movie was released on cinema, the demons would have destroyed humanity. And Darren, you have established that in your book too, demons don't have creativity and imagination. Besides Lord Loss, of course, but that's a story for another time. So even her desire for the sake of art are stupid. Well done, Darren. You are indeed the master of horror. What happens next?
Take a wild guess.
The demons arrive and they wreak havoc on the studio. Guess what happens to Davida, guys? If you guess what I think you did, you are 100% correct. She is dead.
What a twist!
They created a barrier. All humans are trapped. Grabs, Dervis, and Junie's magic have enhanced thanks to the Demonata portal. The gang is back together with Junie and Poe, one of the child actress whose presence didn't sit well with Grams, and her father was part of Davida's plot. I didn't mention her cause her character is pretty forgettable. Anyways, they come up with an objective: push a demon with magic towards the barrier. The impact will create a hole and it would help the people to escape. Grabs, with zero experience with magic, can fight demons like it's not a big deal, but that voice inside of him is guiding him. The fight scenes are pretty dull. The violence is over the top cartoony with no substance. They use that hole to help with the evacuation. A few people managed to get out. Among those left behind, Grabs noticed Bo lingering, intent on searching for her family within the chaos. Eager to assist her, he was stopped by Dervis, who urged a hasty retreat from the studio. The demons, meanwhile, continued the rampage, leaving no survivors in their wake. Accompanying them was one of Davida's former employees, creating a moral dilemma for Grabs. However, it was Billy who prevented him from making a decision that would affect him in the long run. In the end, it was Junie who took it upon herself to dispatch Davida's worker. In the aftermath, the disciples employed their connections to cover up the incident, ensuring it remained shrouded in secrecy. Meanwhile, Junie disappears. Dervis' PTSD is gone, while Grab's PTSD hits him hard. Dervis is impressed by Grab's plot armor. Oops, I mean his magic, of course. What a silly person I am. He wants to train Grabs and become a disciple. Why didn't he thought about that during book 1? It's beyond my comprehension. Grabs did tell you he used magic to escape in book 1. Did you forget about it already, Dervis? Jesus, you are unbelievable. You could have easily started training at that time. Grabs says he doesn't have any magic in him. Bullshit. Dervis uses his magic to enter Grams to search for his potential. He doesn't find it and lets him go. The book ends with Grabs going to the bathroom and checking if he does have the power. And guess what happens, everyone? He does have magic. The end.
To conclude this review, this book is abysmal. You can easily skip this and you won't miss a thing. Only 2 things happen in the book that are relevant in the whole franchise. The introduction of the leader of the organization, which chases the wolves, or in our case, the werewolves, and Junie. That's it. You will not miss anything by skipping this book altogether. So, my rating for this book is 2 out of 10 and 1 star out of 5. Skip this. You won't miss it at all. I can easily recommend you way better things than this god-awful book. As you can see with these movie posters, watch those movies. They are 10 times better than this book itself. For more detailed description for those movies, read it at the description below. So yes guys, that is all for today folks. Make sure to like, subscribe to my channel, and have a good day.